Welcome everybody. This is an update to a slide that I did a while ago, and I also made a video about this, but now what is new today is that we have a new battery swapping partner. It's FAW. That's one of the major state-owned enterprises by China, and NIO closed them today, so I've made an X-Twitter post on that earlier today. But now I want to talk more about, where is this all going? Because for a couple of weeks now, I keep on preaching here on the channel that these partnerships are something worthwhile to watch. I think most of the investors are kind of sad, like the retail investors are kind of sad about the fact that they don't lead to stock price rallies, given that some of them in the past, like here, Geely, Chang'an, Chery, and so on, they are big names, at least in China. And, all of that happened during some of the rapid sharp descent of the NIO share price, I should say. And so people think, well, investors don't ascribe value on that. And it might be true, especially in a macroeconomics environment where we are only seeing excitement around very short-term cash flow potentials, right? And these partnerships might be somewhat more out in the future. However, this is where I think savvy investors, no matter if retail or institutional, can actually see through this, hopefully, and start discounting those potential revenue streams and cash flows, and maybe also the cost reductions of these partnerships already today. I think that's how to think about this. And let's first talk about FAW. So I have this dark blue bar in here, which is not FAW. It's actually Volkswagen FAW, the joint venture. So they are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth largest by sales volume in Q1 2024. And so by that, that FAW Group, with whom NIO now announced a partnership, is one of the joint venture partners of Volkswagen. It's not the only one. They also have SAIC, so they divide the country in geographies, basically. But anyways, it's the joint venture partner of Volkswagen. And I said after the Beijing Auto Show that now it's the time to watch the state-owned enterprises, not so much the Western OEM and not so much the startups like we have last Auto Show. It's more important what these state-owned enterprises are doing, in my opinion, because we see that they are pushed into electrification, and I think they might be ultimately the bigger mover on how this industry will be consolidating. So, speaking of the effects for NIO with all of these partnerships, I think I can think of three things worthwhile discussing right now. The first one is that these partnerships are actually providing a lifeline for NIO in the long run. I don't see any other startup and even established player, let's say like Tesla, that is on the same collaborative and partnership trajectory than NIO is. And how they're interwoven into this EV segment by now is, I think, making them more relevant to all of these players, because they are starting to build cars on the platform that NIO is providing. They are going to commit to battery swapping station build-outs. They are going to build brands that are advertising battery swapping and so on. There's a couple of more things that I could name. But anyways, they are buying into something that NIO has been, doing for a long time. And now, of course, we've got Onvo to prove that this can actually also happen in a mass market segment. But as I'm saying, don't watch too much Onvo. Look more at these partnerships, because these partnerships ultimately have a much larger potential to be monetized and have not only a serviceable market that is addressable to its own brands, but those of other brands. And that's something very unique, in my opinion. So that's one way, I think, to think about these partnerships, which is very valuable. The other one is on the technological side. And by the way, maybe one thing I should also mention here. So I've now highlighted in yellow, not in yellow, in light blue, the ones that have already closed and how big they are, how dominant they are in the whole industry. This darker blue line, of course, is connected to that. It's FAW group though. But obviously the potential might be that in the future, those Western OEMs that have joint venture partners with these state-owned enterprises or cooperating with them, they will jump onto this bandwagon as well after seeing that the SOEs have done so. And, some of them like BYD are not partners officially yet, but I've mentioned in a previous video also that they are actually also committing to the system already by providing the batteries to it. So if Onvo's battery is from BYD, and that's a custom-made battery pack and possibly even a battery pack that is multi-brand, then that's a big deal. That kind of makes them a battery swap partner already, even if they're not producing vehicles on this platform. Might be something in the future though, but it's somehow already soaking them into that system, right? So that's interesting. And this is also, I think, the second point that I like to mention here, how to think about these partnerships. It's this multi-brand attitude here is very interesting because ultimately, I think what's the end goal here is that China will actually come out with a battery swapping standard for the industry. And we've seen, if you look at it historically, we have seen those talks led by NIO, but also others in a consortium, closely collaborating, discussing, and forming real industry standards, like, for example, the DIN norms, like the German industry standards and so on. Similarly, they have done it in China, and who's done it? Mainly NIO, right? But also some other players involved. But at some point, when all of these partnerships are in place and the first cars come out, with that, I think they're going to announce the official standard that will be free to adopt for anyone, and free in terms of look, this is it, this is the standard, you can be part of that ecosystem. Obviously it will not come for free, but that's what it is ultimately. This is where it's going to go, in my opinion, and it's hard to not see it coming now with all of that partnerships coming up into place. Now FAW is a very huge player. That's a huge deal, that the fact that they're now also becoming a partner. Well, you may not want to describe any future cash flow values to that today because you simply are not able to know how to fill your Excel sheet. But if you don't see where this is going strategically, then I think you're very narrow-minded, to be honest and to be frank. And sorry to speak about this such bluntly. But yeah, ultimately for NIO, I think all of that will come down massively profitably. And that's leading me to the reason number 3, the point number 3, how to think about that is the monetization aspect and the revenue streams, the potentials here in those partnerships, but also in the franchising, in the way how, if you're having this standard established and everybody else is going to buy into that, it's becoming very, very powerful that you're one of the first players to rolling it out and you are really the one shaping it. And that's very, very difficult to build. So that's something that could be the outcome, hopefully, but it seems like those puzzle pieces are coming together now. And so I do expect that this will be monetized by battery swaps, by consulting fees, by revenue, by royalties, by licenses, and so on. And we are kind of seeing the first steps, the real steps. If you have followed NIO for some time, then you possibly saw a bit of that coming already, but now it's becoming much more obvious in a way. And I think one more obvious move by that is that if you think from a Chinese perspective, this makes a lot of sense, especially given now that there's huge pressure on Chinese companies with the trade barriers and the investigations and so on, and all of the political stuff around EVs. Once there is once this whole industry is together on this standard and establishing that with all of the benefits of interoperability, multi-brand, the user benefits of fast power replenishment, the benefits towards seeing battery as a life cycle product, which you get a new battery, it's a very expensive piece of the car. Over time it degrades. You have an end of the life value that is still being usable. You need to have health monitoring and checks in between. You need to have replacements. You need to have warranty. You have quality checks. All of that. If you see that very holistic, and if China managing to build something like that, and Western companies want to sell into the Chinese market, or also want to have something which will be on a ecosystem and country level, hugely beneficial, also on the monetary side, because simply the cost structure will also be much better in the end if you think it through as an ecosystem, not looking at just the business case like NIO right now of, well, they have to invest in a battery swap station, so on. Yeah, somebody needs to make the first step and to invest in this R&D and show that it's possible. But once this whole system is up and going and all of these players have signed in, this will be, this will be a system that others also want to have. And then suddenly this Chinese battery swap standard becomes something that they can sell into the world in terms of, look, we have those swappable cars, but they don't work in your country. Let me help you build it up in your country and adjust to the Chinese industry standards. This certainly becomes an export product by China itself. And I think that is what also those big players are seeing as an opportunity, and frankly, as a defense against how they're being played by world politics on top of that. So from a Chinese perspective, and even from these OEM perspectives, it makes much sense for them to buy into that. Yeah, just a couple of thoughts here. Maybe not sufficient, but that's the big news today. Maybe the market will still not react to it, but I think at some point it will. Thanks for watching.